This is Public Facilities of Beaufort County, Monday, November the 21st. Join me, if you will, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sarah, I assume we've done the FOIA okay?
Yes, sir, we have.
Thank you. I'm looking for an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second? Mr. York? Any discussion or changes? Any objection? Seeing none, it stands approved without objection. We do have our minutes from October 17th, and I trust you've studied those. Looking for a motion to approve those.
So moved.
And second?
Second.
We have a second. Any changes, discussions to that? Any objections? If not, they stand approved without objection. That takes us to citizen comment. Sarah, do we have anybody that signed up to speak?
No, sir.
Okay. Is anybody that does want to speak that's here? Okay. Seeing none, that brings us to our update from Jared. Always enjoy that. Good to have you with us, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Rodman and members of the committee. So as usual, a few things to update you guys on things that are happening inside the infrastructure division. Some of the things that are always ready for agenda approval, but just an update on general things. One of the most prudent things that we haven't talked about, it's been pretty quiet as of late, is US 278. Quiet doesn't mean that we're not working, it just means we don't have an action item yet. However, so one thing is the independent review, that's kind of front and center. So we have that proposal or that solicitation out right now. Proposals are due back on Wednesday. So we'll have a team between the town and the county that will review those proposals. We had a pre-proposal meeting. We had 5 consultants on board. So our hope to have a qualified consultant here in the short term is stands ready. So that'll be coming to you as soon as we can get that evaluated and a recommendation made. Also, this past week or so, we held a public meeting on the Burton Church project. That's to include the widening and the sidewalk projects. Part of the sidewalks, part of the sales tax. It was a very successful meeting. Had a lot of good public interaction and well served by county staff. County staff is also working on an ITS master plan as a proposal to the LATS committee coming up in December. So this is the intelligent transportation system. So everything to do with signals and remote connection, and just basically the foundation of architect and technology for now and in the future, so that as we move through, as you get to intelligent vehicles and different things, we'll have a plan in place as those things arise. And then lastly, inside of traffic is the signal retiming. We have a current project with consultant for retiming of signals along Boundary Street and Rebo Road. They're finishing up the design on that now currently and hope to have some implementation in early 2023. So if you've noticed a little bit of congestion here and there, there's some things that we suspect, maybe some detection loops that aren't picking up, and that'll be coordinated and choreographed here shortly. So hopefully some improvement along the way. As far as Public Works is concerned, we had a recent budget amendment in which we had $500,000 pushed towards boat landing improvements. So Public Works has been working expeditiously with that. A lot of that is putting some riprap out to make sure we protect the shoreline, as well as some maintenance items on some of our actual docks and such. So they're making good progress on making those improvements. They're also making progress on their yearly preventative maintenance on our traffic signal cabinets. We have, per DOT, have to get maintenance done on all the signals that we maintain for the state by the end of April, and we stand to be fully complete by the end of the year. So traffic maintenance is making a good push on that. Also, some irrigation systems around the admin building. You've probably seen some of that work going on recently. They're just finishing that up, as well as some fall and winter planting. So the grounds maintenance is making some good strides on their continued maintenance plans. And thanks to some good weather and a lot of hard work by our roads and drainage crews, we're back on track with our kind of 6-week rotation on our county dirt roads as far as the grading process. So thanks on that for all their hard work. And lastly, inside the airport, we've had two good public participation, successful events as of late. One was out at Beaufort Executive Airport, our annual Flying Frog. This was the third year running. Happy to report that John, our airport director, finished second in his age group. So way to go, John. Yeah, that's right. I don't think he was in your age group, though. And we had about 100 racers to that. And again, this was the third annual, and it was the end of a series. So we tied it together with two other races in the area. So it's pretty successful. Hope to keep gaining momentum on that. And at Hilton Head, in partnership with the town of Hilton Head, hosted a Hilton Head motoring event with some activities taking place there at the airport. It was the most that they had recorded, over 21,000 people in attendance to that event, so a very successful event, and glad to be a part of it. So those are all the things that I have, just kind of updates in general, but I'll gladly take any questions.
Questions for Jared? I can't see those online very well, so speak up if you have a question. Okay, if not, Jared, thank you very much. Okay, next item.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yes, sir.
Two matters of business.
Sure.
One, if you recall, you and I had a discussion last week about removing an item from the original agenda regarding the Talbot Bright contract. I would like for you all to consider reconsidering the motion to approve the agenda to add that item, and John Rimbold can come up and explain that to you about the sensitivity of that issue. Delaying that item today will delay our work on doing the terminal expansion, and I understand your concern, but I think Mr. Rimbold has some some additional information. Second item, before we get too far in the agenda, because I'm gonna have to leave today right at 5 o'clock. If we go past that,
We're not gonna go back.
I do want to say thank you. This is your, as I understand it, your last
PSC.
PFC meeting as chairman of the
Thank you.
Public Facilities Committee. I've enjoyed working with you. I think our staff has enjoyed working with you. You're going to leave a big hole coming up in January on the council and on this committee, and I just wanted to thank you and wish you well.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. So, to the, okay, so go back to the agenda. I look for a motion to approve the agenda relative to a contractual amount for Talbot and Bright relative to the airport. And we would need a two-thirds, I need a motion first?
No, you get, yeah, we just need to say it as, make a motion to reconsider the previous motion to approve the agenda and to add that item.
Okay, so a motion to approve, or reconsider and approve the agenda.
I made the motion, I will make this motion.
Okay, and second, York, you okay with that?
Yes, sir, I second. Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any objection to that? Without any objection, then we will take that, because it does require two-thirds, but we're there with
So now we
unanimous.
have to reapprove the agenda.
Now we have to reapprove
with
the
an
agenda.
Added
Okay.
item, which will be item number,
We'll do it as part of John's 10 through 12. Let's do 13.
okay, it'll be
12A.
12A.
Okay.
Simple majority.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so with that, we are now down
No,
to.
we have to
Oh, we
vote.
have to approve the amended agenda. I apologize. Is there a motion? You've already approved it?
Right.
Seconded?
Second.
Any objection? No objection. The agenda as approved and modified is now approved.
Right.
Thank you. Okay. Well, it's always great to have Craig Gordon with us, and he's going to update us on our roads, and as he's, you're going to introduce him? Okay?
Yeah, I'll introduce this, and then Craig can get into it, and then the next one is separate. So this is the 5-year secondary resurfacing. Eric asked the question, like, what are we doing with this? And I was like, well, it's something that DOT is mandated, but before we get into it, I give credit to Chairman Gordon of CTC, living by the quote from Wayne Gretzky about skiing where the puck is going, not where it's been. Because this was something that CTC and Chairman Gordon led and asked staff to look at. The secondary roads are obviously all owned by DOT. Why are we working on their roads? And coming up with a plan. They had already started allocating some funds to low ADT roads out of their required 33%. So they wanted to take this initiative on, and then about the same time, DOT said, okay, we're putting more funding to CTCs in the tune of about $150 million. So our allocation at Beaufort CTC was roughly $5 million. And then later they said, oh, we want you to spend it all on secondary roads. So because they were already moving in that motion, it just happened to catch this just at the right time. And again, I give credit to Chairman Gordon and the rest of the CTC for that initiative. So this is some work on that, and he can explain that a little bit further, as well as invite our consultant, A&T, and Richard Turner, who was doing that work for us. So Chairman Gordon?
Always good to have Craig with us, and he's done some outstanding work for the state, which has been adopted by SCDOT, and he's also a retired Corps of Engineers. So Colonel, good to have you with us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being here. I thought it would be important if we kind of digress and look back at how we got to this point. If you recall, 8 years ago, the state legislature had made a big decision where they no longer would allow the delegations to appoint members to the CTC. They turned around and now allow each of the districts to be represented and have a district representative on the CTC. We all were appointed, and this is coming to the end of our 7th year. And I thought it would be important also to kind of look at, see what we've accomplished over that period of time. Well, Beaufort County never analyzed the roads, never had a history of them, had never mapped them, nothing was done on them whatsoever. We went out and consulted an engineering firm along with the firm that would come in and analyze our roads. All our roads, the 200 plus miles of Beaufort County owned roads, were analyzed. And with that, one of the things we've operated on from day one is we didn't want politics to be involved in our decision-making process. We wanted to do it analytically. The majority of us are engineers, that's the way we operate, and that's the way we proceeded. So we hired an engineering firm, and we come up with a 5-year plan, and we've had a very successful 5-year plan. But it's very interesting to look back at 2017. We had 1.58 miles of very poor roads, and on the opposite side, we had 0 on very good. So there was a bit of an area for improvement in all this. So what basically passed is we put our 5-year program in place, very successful. We again approved funds and put another 5-year program in place, years 6 through 10. But what was very valid, we wanted to validate our actions, and in our 2021 analysis, we went from the 1.58 miles of very poor to 0.9 miles, and the 0.9 miles is being fixed this year. On the very good side, we had 0 before. Today, we have 67.25 miles of very good roads. So we've made a major stride in this. Along with starting a program for our next 5-year plan, we're required by state statute to spend 33% of the funds we receive on state roads, state routes. No ifs, ands, buts, or ors. We get evaluated every year on the dollars we're spending. We put it in, and actually it goes to the state legislature from the CTC program manager, whereby they list, they put it into a packet and give it to all the delegation members so that they can see that whether we're doing the proper job or not, which we are, by the way. So it became a decision point for us. How are we going to go forward with spending our funds on state routes? And it became a big discussion, and the CTC came to a unanimous decision that we will be spending, and I'm going to give you round numbers, roughly we have to spend $1 million a year on state routes. So we came to consensus that we're going to spend $500,000 on low ADT routes. These are routes that will never qualify to be touched in any way, shape, or form by the state. They have a formula of 13 items that they have to follow for decision point on what routes they're going to spend their money on. We also looked at 2,000, between 500 and 2,000 ADT. These are also routes in all our districts that don't get attention. And so each committee member is responsible for their district to come up with listings of routes and justify the money that they're going to spend on or recommend spending on in their districts for that 500,000. And as Jared pointed out, we got $5.8 million that came on to us by the state legislature. So we are taking a chunk of that money and using it in our low ADT routes to really make a difference. And so while this all happened, it was just perfect timing for us. We were ahead of the pack. They also knew that we were doing this, by the way. But we decided to go out. We've hired a consulting firm to come in and do a study and come up with a 5-year plan for us. And AMT was the selected firm to do it, and Richard Turner is here with me today to kind of give you an oversight of what we're accomplishing. Richard?
Thank you, Chairman Gordon. Thank you, Chairman Rodman and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm Richard Turner with AMT Engineering. I'm the South Carolina Program Services Lead, and we were hired by the CTC to evaluate the low-volume secondary road program and develop a five-year program. And the first thing we did. That's all right. Okay, so the first thing we went about doing was reviewing existing data. SCDOT provided the county with a list of the roads that are less than 500, or the full list of secondary roads in Beaufort County. We brought that down to just the roads that had a 500 ADT or less, and which equated to about 400 roads throughout the county, about 182 miles. And so we looked at that data to understand exactly what condition is the system, how is SCDOT reporting that. And what you see there, the bar graph there, is about 90% of the roads that they're fair or better condition. So fair, good, and very good condition. The overall network of secondary roads, we did a weighted average of those based on the pavement quality index that SCDOT uses on a 1 to 5 scale or 0 to 5. The overall secondary network is around a 3.14, and the subset, the small less than 500 roads, is around a 3.06, which is a good condition rating. Mm-hmm. So the next step we took in this That's perfect. All right, I'll tell you next time. All right. So the next step we did was go through and do a pavement condition survey of our own to understand exactly what do we see, what do our guys see, boots on the ground, what are we seeing versus what DOT is reporting. We did that. We did that based on we used NCDOT or North Carolina DOT standards to do that, and we rated them basically on a 0 to 100 scale, which equates to a pavement condition index or a pavement condition rating. There's multiple ways of doing, but essentially it's a visual survey of the roads to understand exactly those conditions. We collect data and understand what type of distresses are there within those roads, and we look at the entire length and width of the road. What we found was very similar in the fact that over 90% of the roads were in a fair or better condition. So I think we were around 89% or 92%, and DOT's was around 94. So we're very close, which is, we had repeatable data, which is what we wanted to see. The scale is a little bit different, so you said the bar graphs look a little bit different, but at the end of the day, the roads that are in very poor condition was very closely the same. I think around 8 to 11% between the two. So overall, what we found was this piece of the network is in good condition. To give you kind of a visual of what that looks like on a heat map, from green being good, red being bad, it's predominantly on the green side. So just matches what I was just saying. Predominantly, this piece of the network is overall in a good condition. So the next thing we did, as part of that pavement condition survey, we also looked at the land characteristics or the land development. What's actually happening on these roads? What type of development are there along each of the routes and we scored, we took account of the industries, churches, schools, homes, and each of those got a score. So the ones that generated more traffic, you would see those with a higher score, which is what you see on the screen. So we totaled that and divided it basically by the length, which creates a density, if you will, of development per mile of road. And then we also utilized the actual average daily traffic, and we provided a score to go along with that. And what that gave us was an overall score for the land use characteristic score. So you think about two things I've got here. I've got the pavement condition survey and the score that's 0 to 100, and then you have the land use characteristic score. So you go to the next slide. So what we did with those two numbers is we combined those. 75%, it was basically a weighted average. 75% of the condition index was added to 25% of the land use characteristics. So we're bringing in the condition is the predominant factor of what each of the roads to be ranked, but it also brings in the land use characteristics as well. So you get an overall score. And the table, it's hard to read there, but the table basically shows the roads as they are listed from basically worst condition or the highest score to the lowest score. So that was utilized to determine what are our priorities and how we move forward with this 5-year program. Next. So the next step was treatment types. How do we want to treat these roads? Some roads are in good condition, some roads are fair, and then poor. What we landed on through discussions with Chairman Gordon, the DOT, and county staff was we want to use basically a mix of treatments. One thing about this section, this subset of the network is it's about 50-50 between rural roads and urban roads. So the treatment types that you can utilize on those can vary. The rural roads, what you see on a lot of those today is a chip seal treatment. And so we could go back and do something very similar to that. And what we chose, which was a scrub seal, which is very similar treatment type than what you see on the majority of those. I think about 38% of the roads in this network were rural and currently have chip seal. Well, those roads would be treated again with that very similar treatment type. The roads in the urban area, you'll see those, your typical hot mix asphalt roads. Those will be either milled or overlaid with a new layer of hot mix asphalt. That's what we landed on, and you can go to the 5-year, next one. So the 5-year plan, and this is year one shown on the screen. Year one basically was $3.5 million. We utilized $1 million of the recurring CTC funds and $2.5 million of the one-time funding that Chairman Gordon was speaking about through the state legislature. What that gives us is around 30 miles of roads to be impacted in year one. Year two, we dropped down to the $500,000 per year, and subsequently through years 3, 4, and 5, which is about 3 miles per road, 3 miles per year of roads that will be resurfaced. But what this does in the big scheme of things is all the roads that are currently yellow and red will all turn green. In a 5-year program, every road within this small subset will all be in good condition or better. There'll be some that are in good condition that'll drop down to probably to the fair category within the next 5 years, but you'll have opportunities to revisit those and treat those along the way. Year one, those plans have been submitted to the county for them to develop the plans, and I'll let Jared and others speak on that if they need to, but that's where we are, and that's what we've put together so far and recommended to the CTC, and it's been approved thus far.
Some questions?
I think it's very good.
I find it incredible what you all have done. This is where it really does hit the citizen rate. To see roads improved, citizens can see it firsthand.
Thank you. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody online got a question? Guess not. Okay. That takes us to a resolution for adopting the 5-year plan. Jared, is that you?
Yes, sir. So that was CTC and paved roads, and those were also DOT-owned roads. This is typically paid out of our tag funds, dirt roads, and these are county-owned dirt roads. So similar to CTC and the 5-year plan, they have a 5-year plan for our county paved roads and now a 5-year plan for DOT secondary roads. We have a 5-year plan for our dirt roads. Similar to the resurfacing, we've already been through roads 1 through 5, or are working towards the end of the 5 years, and we're preparing for years 6 through 10. So we put out an RFQ, and we selected Consor Engineering. The great thing is, even though it's a different firm than previously, the project manager, Dan Chisholm, is the same project manager that helped in our first year, 1 through 5. So there's great consistency with that. Unfortunately, Brian Bauer, fortunately and unfortunately, Brian Bauer is our project manager on this project, but is not present because he and his wife had their first child last week. So kudos to those guys. But without that, Eric and Dan Chisholm, if you guys want to come and give a presentation on where we are and what's been with that. Just Dan, how about that?
Okay. You said Eric, it kind of threw me there for a minute.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Gentlemen, thanks a lot for the opportunity to stand before you today and present the 5-year dirt road paving plan for the next year. Consor, you guys probably never heard of Consor before, but we're nationwide, basically international company. Offices all over the United States. 2 offices here in South Carolina. And like Administrator FRALIX said, I've been working in Beaufort for well more than a decade now. Introduce our Consor team to you. Next slide, if you would. Josh Gray is our Vice President here in charge of South Carolina. He's working out of our Charleston office, very close here to Beaufort County. My senior roadway inspector was Mindert Poppenheisen. Mindert's been doing road work now for about 20 years in the United States after coming from South Africa. And again, Dan Chisholm, I'm the project manager for it. And like I say, I've been working in Beaufort for well more than a decade. The very first project I did here was Ace Basin out in Gardens Corner. Y'all probably love the little roundabout that we put up there. That was one of the very first ones we ever did in Beaufort County. Went on from there. I did the Bluffton Flyover project, finished that in 2016. And as we were finishing that up, we were fortunate enough to be selected to do Chairman Gordon's first paving assessment for the county roads. So I've been working in Beaufort for a long time. Next slide, if you will. Along about time we finished up the paving plan for Chairman Gordon for the county roads, county decided they also needed to do a similar plan for the dirt road paving plan. So the county retained another consultant at that point in time, and that consultant came up with the very first 5-year plan. County has been very happy, staff's been very happy with the way that assessment went. They just wanted to do a little bit of tweaking to some of the things. Just real quick to kind of explain a little bit, we basically have 2 scoring components in it. The first scoring component is comprised of what is the physical characteristics of the road itself, what kind of right-of-way do we have on the road, and then lastly, what is the what we call the daily traffic. How do we assess the daily traffic? That's what we call component A, and there are different percentages in that, but just on the screen there you can see our scoring charts that we had. We made a little tweak to each one of those. The last consultant never really set foot on any of the dirt roads. We physically walked every mile of the dirt road that you have in the county. Minder did that for us, and we assessed the condition of the road as well. We worked with staff with regards to the right-of-way. We did a little bit of tweaking to the way the right-of-way was scored. And of course, you guys understand that you've got some roads that are legacy roads in the county dirt road system. And some of the roads, you've already got all full right-of-way on it. Some roads you're already negotiating for some right-of-way on those roads, and some roads you don't have any right-of-way on as well. And then we looked at the daily traffic. Basically, kind of, we counted the houses on the roads. Again, this was the system that was in place before. Counted the houses, counted the churches, counted the businesses on the roads, counted the cemeteries, the bus routes, things like that. One of the things that we tweaked with this year's plan was the roads that feed into the dirt road systems. They counted the roads before, but they really didn't count the residences, they didn't count the businesses, all those other things to factor into the daily traffic. So we kind of made a little slight adjustment there. The second scoring part of the system is basically what we call a benefit cost ratio analysis. Basically, how much does it cost to maintain the dirt roads as they are right now? How much are you spending every year to do that? Worked again with staff, a lot of collaboration with them regarding the maintenance supervisors, work on the roads. How much are they spending? What kind of problems are they seeing on the road? And then lastly, what would it cost you if you paved the road? And you kind of come up with a ratio of what it costs to maintain it versus what you cost to completely pave it. So those were the two components that we did. We had some dirt roads in the county that we didn't consider. Staff asked us not to consider. Defusky. We're never going to pave a dirt road on Defusky. We want to put gravel on all those roads. Some of the roads are already in the system to be paved this year and next year to finish up the first 5-year plan. And then we already have some agreements with some of the landowners in place that the landowners don't want their road paved. So we took out those roads that aren't applicable. And then we scored basically every single dirt road in the county and came up with our list. Your report's got that in it. Go ahead, next slide if you would. This is kind of basically just the first page of that ranking system. And every single dirt road that you see is going to be in the list. And from there, we finished up, last slide if you would, the actual 5-year plan. So we took those roads and we were told to physically constrain them to about $2 million worth of expenditures a year. So basically, year 2025, we're looking at doing Gibson Road, Frederica Taylor, Hilly Farm Road, and Alice Ladson Drive. So those are spread out between District 1, District 3, and District 10. Year 2026, Gillison Loop, Montgomery Lane, and Davis Road. Year 27, Harbor Oaks, Pritchard Farm, Flora Drive, and Old Country Drive. Those roads were spread out between Districts 1, District 3, and District 9 as well. 26, we had District 1 and District 7 represented in that year paving plan. 2028, Cato Lane, Glass Road, and North Sea Pines Drive. And then the last year of the plan, 5th year, 2029, basically most of the roads on Ladies Island, a lot of the dirt roads on Ladies Island there. And again, we physically constrained it, roughly $2 million in each of the first 5 years, 1.8, 1.7 million. The last year, Ladies Island is a little bit more than that. It's about $2.8 million worth of work on Ladies Island. But that's your next 5-year plan, and I'll take questions.
Questions? Very comprehensive. York?
Thank you, Mr. Chisholm. I appreciate your presentation, and I appreciate all the work you have done
Yes,
to this, to bring it to this point. I'm just going to make one comment.
Yes, sir.
I'm in a rural community primarily, and some of your qualification for paving really penalize rural communities because we may not have, it's almost like I would have to create a cemetery on my property in order to get the standard up so I can have a paved road and stuff. And I don't think we really want to do that. And we may not have as many traffic, industry, and on those dirt roads and stuff, but the citizens want their road paved. So just keep that in mind as you go through your criteria for evaluating roads. So I'm gonna stop there.
One of the things, I'll go ahead and address that for you real quickly. We did talk with staff. Staff brought us the concerns. Right now, if you look at the way the roads were analyzed, Category A, which is the one that's got the daily traffic, the number of houses, et cetera, got the condition of the road, got the right of way, all that factored in, is about, originally was 66% of the scoring criteria, with the benefit cost ratio being 34%. So, to add up to 100. When staff brought us your concerns, one of the things we did was say, okay, what can we do? Can we look at this a little differently? So one of the things we did, we said, okay, well, let's lower the percentage that we apply to the daily traffic to address the rural. And then let's maybe up the benefit cost, because it's not gonna cost as much to pave some of the rural roads. So give more credit to that. We analyzed it again that way. And to be honest, the ranking system didn't change much. What we found out was we were indeed, if you look, a lot of the roads in District 1 and District 2 were the ones that jumped up to the very top, the ones in the more rural sections.
Yeah, I'm gonna just make a comment similar to what I made at the last council meeting to the staff. When it dealt with stormwater and getting easements, a lot of the property in the rural area is really subject to heirs property.
Yes.
Getting easements for that may be problematic. At the same time, we also have what I consider quote-unquote legacy road, where you may not have the width that you require for an easement properly, but that road can't go anywhere, and it has to be used and maintained, because it's a legacy road. So I'm assuming that you are also considering paving roads like that.
Yes.
That may not have the proper easements given, but the road ain't going nowhere, and it has to be used.
It is, and again, when we look at legacy roads, that was factored in on the right-of-way category. And for the roads that were not legacy, they were given basically a factor of 1, where legacy roads were given a factor of 1.5. So legacy roads are more important, from that regard.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
In 2022, we had 4 roads scheduled to be paved.
Yes, sir.
We know that there were difficulties obtaining materials, and the cost of paving went way up. Were we able to pave all of those roads that were scheduled for 2022?
Well, I can't answer to that year.
Yeah, I can answer. The money's fine. We're gonna be able to make all those, get constructed, and I don't have the exact timeline, but none of those were bumped or anything, but they are still scheduled, and I'll get you a timeline specific to those roads.
Okay.
And one of the things we did additionally with the benefit cost analysis, we took the most current 3 years, 4 years in the existing paving plan. We factored in those increased costs. Because we're in a time of economic concern right now with very high inflation, we went ahead and added a little bit additional inflation to those, so that all of those data points are in the analysis that we did to try to take
Okay.
advantage.
And will it, Jared, will it affect the roads that we intend to pave in 2023? Will they be delayed because we're still paving the?
No, so we have separate contracts. So we put out a contract every year regardless of what the one's doing. So if it's taking us extra time of permitting, we're still going to put one out the following year. So we're trying to stay at a yearly schedule where we have roads that are entering, it's a 2-year program basically. So it takes a year worth of design and a year worth of construction. So we're trying to stay on schedule with that. And the costs really, we have seen some increased costs, but not to affect where our plan in our
Okay.
current
Great,
paving schedule.
okay.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
I will make the motion to approve the prioritization of the 5-year dirt road paving program.
Second, Mark seconds. Any further discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, this stands approved without objection.
And we have to move this to council,
And we have
correct?
to move this to council, of course. Yep. Okay. That brings us to our airport. No public facilities meeting would be complete without John being here. Does a good job of rounding up money for us, and we're glad to hear that you finished second, and hopefully there were more than 2 people in that division.
I'm not going to tell you how many people are in that division, but I will tell you that that was my last year in that division. So I graduate next year, and I don't know if the next division is going to be more difficult or less difficult. So that means I'm getting older, but I'm still running, so I guess that's a win.
Why don't you do 10 and 11, which are the 2 resolutions, and we can maybe take those and vote on them together unless they're controversial?
Let's see. No, I might need Brittany to help me on 11. That's just the, for the Hunter Road. 2 different airports, but I'm happy to talk about both of them. Number 10 is just a resolution to accept the Aeronautics Commission grant. That's just standard grant that we partner with the state on whenever we have a project. So this is to rehabilitate the runway out at Beaufort Executive. It's for the design and bidding for that project. So it's not the construction, it's just design and bidding. That's, give or take $15,000 is all that one is. So we're just happy to accept that grant. The second one, number 11, is to approve a commercial property lease agreement. And this is on the final, if you remember at Hilton Head Island Airport, we had that series of properties we were acquiring on Hunter Road. This is a final property. It's finally been acquired at the end of October. And that property had an existing lease agreement on it with Avis Budget Rental Car Company, and they use that. There's a small building there, and they use it to basically service their cars after their return and get them ready for the client. So we're going to continue that lease, so that makes it a recurring revenue item for the airport, which is a benefit to the county.
Okay. Brittany, you need to add anything, or?
I think you covered it.
Okay.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Look for a motion to approve?
You want both of them, right?
Yeah, we'll do
Yeah.
both.
So move.
And I will second that.
Second, okay. Is there any further discussion on either of these? And hearing none, both stand approved without objection. And I think resolutions, do these have to go to council, or given the dollar amount?
No, they have to.
15,000? Has to go, okay. We'll send those on to the next meeting, hopefully.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, that brings us to item number
12 and 12A.
Yeah, we'll do 12, then we'll come back and do 12A, and this is your CIP programs for both airports.
Correct. And this, if you probably remember, each year we bring this forward, and what the FAA requires of the airports who are in the NIPIAS, or the transportation system, is each year to provide them with a 5-year plan for capital projects, infrastructure projects at both of the airports. So we've provided that to the FAA. This typically is kind of a give and take over the next couple of months, where the FAA will review our list, and they'll have a few adjustments to make to that. And then by the time we get to about the March timeframe, they'll be finalized until we get around to this time next year, and then we'll do it all again. Well, basically, we look at a 5-year chunk each year, so the FAA knows how to start programming their near-term funds, and then how much, farther-term money they have to start looking at to fund these projects. So just to really make it kind of in a nutshell, if we look at Beaufort Executive Airport in the years we're talking about, which are federal fiscal year 24 to 28 inclusive, that's about $11.5 million worth of total project cost. That includes the airport's cost, the state sharing costs, and then the FAA costs. Large majority of that is FAA cost. And the major projects there are going to be the runway rehabilitation project. That will be the construction phase of that. And then beyond that will be the extended runway safety area permitting and construction. So that actually takes us all the way through. Those are fairly comprehensive projects and complicated projects, but that'll take us through that full 5 years. So that's about $11.5 million is what we're looking at there. And then at Hilton Head Island Airport, the number's a little bit bigger. It's about 18 million. That excludes the terminal because we've previously discussed that. So that really talks about the taxiway and runway rehabilitation projects and strengthening projects. We need more and more aircraft in, larger aircraft, so we need to strengthen those facilities. And then also it will reimburse us for the property acquisitions that we've made on Hunter Road. And the way that works, you have to acquire all the properties before you can apply for that grant. So it's in their system, it's been in their system, and now we can now that we've got the final property, now we can begin that application process. So that's another one of the major items. And that one's give or take $8 million. So that will, replenish the coffers on the county finance
And
side.
that's
So-
the money, as you maybe remember, it's basically owed to the county cash pool.
Exactly, correct. And then the last items are more planning type items, but no less important. One is the airport layout plan update. And then on the heels of that would be some of the environmental and design documents that we'll work on to recover the displaced thresholds at Hilton Head. So that's kind of what we're looking at for the next 5 years at both airports.
Does this require any kind of approval for us or from the FAA or?
It doesn't. They like to know that the governing body has seen it. They don't require an approval. That's why we typically bring it forward as an informational item.
And these would come, we'd see them again next time we update the 5-year plan and when we're gonna spend some money.
Exactly
Come
correct.
forward for
That's right.
us. Okay. Well, only 30 million, John.
So
Questions?
we'll be back, don't worry.
Great. Questions for John, comments?
Okay, and then the last one, I appreciate you putting that back on the agenda. That's the amendment to the work authorization for the design and bidding of the Hilton Head Island Airport Terminal. And the reason there's an amendment there is because if you recall, the first time we bid the project back in the early part of the summer, those bids came in very high due to the inflation. And so what we decided to do as a team was to basically look at that project and divide it up into phases, with that first phase including the project elements that we already have funding for, already have grant funding on board for, and that we could execute. And so this amendment it's kind of a two-part amendment. It's got the design component of it that allows the engineers, the architects, and all of their sub-consultants to go back through the project and basically take that building apart and find those dividing areas and kind of work back into that rough number that we've got. So they'll do all of that work, which is pretty complicated work. And then the rest of that is really the lion's share of the amendment. About half of it is it's an hourly number, and that is for construction administration and inspections that'll happen on that project. And the reason that's a little bit higher now is because we'll actually be executing a couple of phases within that first phase at the same time. So we'll have some site work that happens at the same time that complicated building work goes on, and you have to have different inspectors to do that. We will obviously try to minimize that hourly time, but we'd rather have that in the budget and not use it, which we actually have been able to do on every project so far, is not use all that hourly funding. But we'd rather have it in there in the event that we roll into, daytime operations and nighttime operations. You get into, hours restrictions with labor laws and that sort of thing. But this just gives us that flexibility to fully execute that project once we do bid that and begin the construction.
So, questions, comments for John? York?
No.
Anybody online?
So we need a formal
Motion?
motion.
Recommend, yeah, this ought to go to council as well.
Yes.
So
Yes.
all these items discussed today will come to council in January.
Okay.
So,
Do we know exactly how you want it worded?
Let's see, it would be,
contract.
it's a Tower Brighton Ellington work authorization 2119-1905, Amendment 1 to County Council with a recommendation to approve.
I will move that recommendation.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, York seconds. Any further comments? I just have one or two. The background on why we took this off was that I had gotten a call from Ann Esposito, who is our representative for the first congressional district on the commission. And she relayed to me a little bit of the meetings that you've had, and very complimentary of John and how he defends us in all of that. But my sense in listening to it was that they have this pot of money. I guess it's 60 million. Some of it is carved out for a possibility of a future airport, a little bit less to allocate on the first go-round. But basically, you and your 5 compatriots will get to make a recommendation as to how to divvy up the money, if I understand that correctly.
That's definitely not the easy part.
Not the easy part. They tell me you're doing a good job. But it sounded like that they want to have a submission kind of along the lines of a grant, type of thing, and that would be due, I guess, next week sometime. And then they were scheduling a meeting 3 weeks out to actually make the decision. And it sounded like to me that one of their concerns was whether or not things were shovel-ready, or one of the considerations. And some of the folks even suggested that we, as the little Beaufort, ought to get a bigger share. So, what I was concerned about was that if part of the criteria is shovel-ready, and we're going back and redid it, would somebody be making an argument that, well, wait a minute, Beaufort's not shovel-ready after all, and therefore it would be a tougher negotiating position for you with your compatriots? So that was the only reason for it. Now, maybe I don't understand that well, but is that a concern at all, or should that be a concern to us in the next 3 weeks as you negotiate the dollar amount?
I don't think it is, and just to clarify a little bit, it was the amount starting out was 50 million, and then 20% was peeled off for those other items. So we're down to 40 million, and we're arm wrestling over that between the 6 commercial airports. As you can imagine, there's some real heavyweights in the room with Charleston, Greenville, Spartanburg, Columbia, and Myrtle Beach, otherwise known as the Big Four. When you're not in the Big Four, you're fighting up a mud hill to get some of that funding. So we've been working pretty hard to get our share of that funding, because we've got immediate needs for that funding, and we have challenges that other airports don't face, and we don't have some of the benefits the other airports have. But I don't think there's a risk of being considered not shovel-ready, particularly in light of the competition that we'll have for those grants, because whichever way we slice it, we're going to have to rebid that project. And I don't think that we'll be looked at as being not shovel-ready, because we'll be able to execute that project within a matter of months, once we get into that bid phase and through it.
As far as that's concerned.
Yes, sir.
Roughly, what is the time, do you think, to go back out to bid after we go through this redesign, repackaging?
I think that, roughly speaking, we should be bidding this should be this winter or very early spring.
Okay.
But that's what it looks like now.
And have we given them a bogey as to what would be the dollar amount that they would try to cram into the first phase?
Well, it's been that same number we've talked about in the meetings, and it's a little bit rough, so they're being a little bit conservative on that. But and again, we do have other grant applications that are out there at this time, so that we've asked the team to make sure they put the plan together such that there are additional items that can be added to that bid. So should we receive additional federal funding, which we have applied for, then we could add to that construction scope. So we've protected ourselves that way.
Is the 12 million that the General Assembly approved, is that in our?
It is.
Okay, good. You've answered my questions, you always do. Any other comments or questions? Okay, this has been motioned and seconded. Is there any objection to proceeding forward with this? Hearing none, this stands approved without objection. Thank you, John, as always.
Thank you again.
Okay, next item is number 13. This is a recycling facility, if I remember correctly.
That is correct. So,
This is a big step.
that's right. We're moving forward. We've been talking about it a long time. I know everybody's anxious, as we are, to get forward on the MRF, the Material Recovery Facility. I have Dave Wilhelm. He's the Deputy Public Works Director. to talk about this. He'll also, in addition to talking about the equipment and the contract for that, which is on the agenda for a recommendation, other updates that we're taking and that are going on currently inside solid waste and recycling, which is now housed inside of Public Works. So, Dave, if you can come up and provide an update on all the above.
Good afternoon. The item, Neil's out of the office today, that's why I'm pinch hitting for Neil. The item is for purchasing processing equipment for the material recovery facility, or the MRF. As you can see on the AIS form, it's a qualified recommendation. We're recommending moving forward to negotiate a contract to purchase the equipment for the MRF. I'll give an update on where we are with the actual MRF itself a little bit later, but this is strictly for the processing equipment. The reason we want to do this is we want to try to secure the pricing. So this is, if you could turn to page 49 on the, there it is, thank you. I think the easiest way to describe what this is. So I think it's important to point out, this is a material recovery facility for recyclable materials. There will be no trash coming in this facility. And what's shown on the screen is a picture of the proposed system. It's a very complete system. A brief description of it, starting from the right-hand corner. There's an in-feed conveyor. There's a metering device to kind of level out the materials going through the process. There's a cardboard separator, a polishing screen, several magnets, cross-belt magnets to pull out all the ferrous material, the tin and the steel. Eddy current separator, pull out the aluminum, and it all goes to a dual ramp baler at the end. So it's a very complete system. There are some add-ons that Green Machine offers, optical sorting and robotic sorting. This system, even though it has a lot of automation, is also very labor-intensive for sorting. There's stations for about 8 to 10 sorters on there, mostly for plastic. But there is an option at a later date if we want to add some more automated capabilities. In fact, if you turn to page 47, I think that will help us. That's a kind of a plan view of the site, and that's important to show how it fits inside the building. So that shows kind of a plan view of how the equipment is laid out. And what's important to notice on this slide is the dimension. So it's roughly 200 by 100 feet, which is a 20,000 square foot area. So when we're talking about a MRF, we've got to size the building about 30 to 40,000 square feet. This is 20,000 square feet is what we need for the process equipment itself, but it doesn't have room for the tipping floor or bale storage, so we need something a little bit larger. Green Machine has been making recycling systems for about 10 years. Their main office is in New York, their manufacturing facilities in New Hampshire. And I want to recognize Victoria Hoffman. She actually attended some conferences and met Green Machine. I had not heard of them before, so she talked to them and asked them to submit a proposal. I don't think we would have gotten their proposal without her help. So very good system. I visited one of the plants and saw it operating, and it's first class. So it's our staff's recommendation to execute a contract with Green Machine, again, with contingencies to secure the current pricing. And the contingencies are, we will not move forward unless the project itself moves forward.
This project is what?
I'm sorry, for the material recovery facility. So this is for the processing equipment inside the facility.
It's contingent on the whole project going forward.
Right.
This is just locking up
The equipment itself.
equipment itself.
Yep.
What would get in the way of the project going forward?
I can give a quick update on where we are for the MRF. So our preferred location is the Simmonsville Road drop-off center. That's the site in Bluffton. It's corner Simmonsville Road and Bluffton Parkway. The site itself, the active site, is about 7 acres. There's about an acre behind the current operation that's available. This facility, when it's finally designed, will need much more area than that. We've got to have roads coming in. We have to have a scale, obviously, the building. So we need to acquire additional acreage. It's about a 2.65 acre behind it. And then there's also some additional acreage that's needed that's part of the rural and critical land swap. So we need to work through a lot more details on that process before we're ready to make a recommendation. We do have some meetings scheduled internally with staff to try to make some more decisions on that before we come to committee or council with a final recommendation on that site.
Okay. Forgot, did I do the motion?
No, we have to do the motion.
Okay. Look for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
York seconds? Okay, open it for discussion.
Questions, Mr. Chair?
Chris, yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dave. Thanks for the presentation. Helpful as always. 2 questions. One is, given where we are with the labor market and how difficult it is to find workers, why not move forward with the automation now? And then number 2, what sort of inflation are we seeing on machinery like this? And how time sensitive is this? That's more of a curiosity question than anything.
Very good question on the first one. I agree with you. The sorting equipment, the optical sorter, the iBots are relatively pricey. They're in the $500,000 to $750,000 range. If funding's available, we can certainly move forward with that and include that in the original or initial purchase. I think what we have to do is kind of take a step back and look at the project in its entirety to make sure we have funding for the property purchase, the building, the site work, the design, and then have this processing equipment. We can add it in at any time. So this gets us the base system. If funding's available for the total project to add that automated equipment, I would absolutely love to do that initially too. And it's a very good point about labor. Everybody's experiencing that everywhere, trying to find a qualified labor. And as far as increases, most of this, I think all of this material or equipment is going to be steel. Steel prices have increased fairly dramatically. They've stabilized out a little bit recently, but we just want to try to move forward and secure this just to, make sure we have, try to beat inflation if we can.
Other questions? So, if you go back to the contingency, if we approve the land swap that we have before council now, does that make the project to go at that point for us?
That's a piece of it.
That's a piece of it, okay.
We still have to acquire additional parcel. There's a 2.65 acre in between, and then we obviously have to find the total funding for the project.
Okay,
On the AIS form, it identifies the funding source to purchase the equipment, but we do not have a funding source for the entire project.
So if the project took 6 months,
Mhm.
we would basically, Green themselves would want some kind of a price adjustment, I assume.
Well, that's what we're hoping to negotiate, and we don't have a contract yet. We want to present this to committee first before we've reached out to Green Machine and talk to them.
Okay.
So what we'd like to do is get approval to negotiate, reach out to Green Machine. We're interested in your product. They're aware of the current status of the MRF and, how it's a little bit of a fluid situation, and we're hoping we can get at least some kind of commitment from them to secure the pricing. My guess is they'll counter with that and say, we want, if it's 6 months, if it's 8 months, we want some kind of protection. But before we reached out to them, we wanted to present this first.
I would think we'd be actually better served to, well, I'll say this. To actually go ahead and approve the council that the buying of a contingency as opposed to just the ability to negotiate. I think that would give you a stronger negotiating standpoint.
Absolutely. If we are 100% certain we're going to be moving forward with a material recovery facility, would love to do that.
We'll leave that to you and Eric to talk
Okay.
about. Because I have no problem with bringing it forward.
Okay.
Okay. Other comments, questions? You okay with that, Eric?
As long as y'all make a motion to move up forward, I'm happy with that. I've got about 9 minutes, and I'm presenting the very last item.
Yeah, okay.
Quick.
Any objections to this?
Mr. Chairman?
Chris?
Not an objection, but can I offer an amendment that we direct staff to locate the funding for the automation as well?
Yeah, I think that would go without saying. I think it makes sense.
Yep.
So just-
Absolutely. Thank you.
so, if it's okay with you, Chris, we'll just assume that that's part of what we're going to bring forward to council? The complete
That's
package?
fine. I mean, they
Yeah.
handle it that way.
Okay, that one can stand approved without objection, and so we only got 9 minutes left. Let's see, which one we got here?
We got the right-of-way issue, which should
Skip
be
the
You want to
a
take yours
motion
first?
that you all can make without any presentation from staff.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve the ordinance.
Okay. Second? Marty?
Sorry.
Objection? No objection, that stands approved without discussion or objection. And since we need air, hurry up in your 8 minutes, sir.
So, this next item is the Scott Center situation. This is a historic issue for me as county administrator and probably previous county administrators. We do not own the property that Scott Center sits upon. There was a concession stand out there that was damaged in a previous storm. The folks that we engage with on the Scott Center have asked for that concession stand to be removed. We have scheduled that work many, many times to remove the concession stand, only to be told, hold up, we don't want you to remove it until the county commits to rebuilding it. We have a lease on the property that essentially says that if we do any improvements, that gives us the right to do the improvements. But if we do improvements and the lease goes away, then those improvements remain on the property. So, and we're not sure at this point that the lease is even in effect on the property at this point. So I'm here before you all today just to let you all know that situation. If you all want me to rebuild a concession stand on a piece of property that we do not own, that we may or may not have a lease on, I am happy to proceed with that construction, but I'm not going to spend money on property that we do not own without you all weighing in on and telling me what your desire would be as a county council. It would be, we had the same issue with a boat landing not long ago that had a big hole in the middle of it. Same situation. We don't have a written agreement with anyone. We didn't have an agreement on that boat landing. We do have a lease in this particular case that says we can make improvements to the property if we want to, but I just want council to be aware that if we do and that lease is not valid, no longer in effect, or terminates, then the public benefit may be temporary for the property, which is something you all need to give me some advice on.
I certainly believe we have to, A, have our county attorneys take a look at the current lease. If that is damaged and we are leasing a damaged piece of property, I don't know the validity of the lease, and we should not be spending taxpayer dollars on improvements to property we don't own or may never own.
And this thing that you see on the screen is the expenditures that we've done over the last few years out there.
How much you looking at to upgrade this?
$17,000 to rebuild the concession stand. Or we could work with the property owners, instead of building a permanent concession stand, bring in a portable concession stand that could be moved around.
Where is this?
This is the Scott Center out on St. Helena Island. Yes, sir. It's in Councilmember Glover's district.
You can speak to that.
Thank you, sir. There is a lease. Are you saying that there is not a lease, or there is a lease? Which one?
There's 3 leases.
So the concession stand that you're talking about is under a lease right at this time?
It's under a lease that, based on my latest information this afternoon, expired in 2010 and has not been renewed.
How many leases do you have on the property there?
3.
And the 3 lease, how many is actually good? 1, 2?
We were inquiring as to
Could you
whether.
get Mike said when you hear?
Our records do not show that the leases have been renewed, and that was being asked of by the landlord.
So my question is, there's 3 leases that was executed, and Mr. Greenway now is saying that the one that the property is on now has not been renewed since 2010?
That is the only one that I have, yes.
That is the information I've been given. We have a lease the only
from-
lease that we have out there that's valid.
Right, I mean, you're getting the information from whom? Who are you getting?
From staff that handled this for me. The only lease we have out there that's valid, and it goes through 2024 or 2025, is the lease on the actual building.
Okay.
which is the
Because-
Scott Center proper.
Yeah, because we do not have a valid lease, is there a clause in there that it will be automatic renewed or what? I mean,
Well, I
we
don't-
have leases all the time.
Yeah, I don't know that an automatic renewal language in a lease like that is sufficient without new councils voting to do the extension, and I think that's a part of the problem. I don't know that council has ever voted to renew the lease since 2010.
I got you. Now, at the same time, you have a lease, and I'm assuming that there's an automatic provision in there, but if it's not, most leases would have that on there.
Right.
Or you may have a lease to say that if either party desired not to renew it, they will notify the other person that this is not going to be renewed, or we do not desire. Has that ever occurred from either party?
No, I know, we've never put anything in writing
Okay.
saying we're not going to renew it.
And I don't think, I'm assuming that they have not done that either.
No, they have not.
Right, okay. So the assumption is that we are leasing a property to the county has a lease on that property, whether it's been valid or not, it's just a matter of us rectifying that at this time.
Yeah.
I don't think that community has a desire to not renew the lease.
Okay.
I don't think so now. I may be wrong.
Well,
But have they said to you that they have a desire not to renew?
there has been some indications from some people involved with the Scott Center that they don't like the way the county's handling the property, and they will not, they want to
Has
take
that
it back
come
over.
in? Yeah, is that, now I've heard similar in a public meeting. I don't accept that.
Okay.
I accept a signed
Well,
piece
I
of
can't-
agreement, letter or something from the.
But I
Go ahead.
can't, as a county administrator, vote to expend public money on a piece of property where somebody's threatening that, hey, we may terminate the lease with you.
Did that come from any of the
It
officers?
came from
of-
people that were associated with the
No,
Scott Center.
No. I can say that in the public, and I can be a part of, just like I'm on council, I can say things on council, but
There have
until
been-
this council says so.
Yes, to answer your question, there have been statements made by people that are officers with the Scott Center.
Officers?
They play a role with the Scott Center.
Whoa.
And
They're
they have
not officers now. They're part of that community.
No, these are folks that I've met with Mr. Miller in the room, who's basically said, well, if the county's not going to do what we want to do on the property, we should just take it back over and operate it ourselves. Now, these are folks that Mr. Miller has brought to meetings with me. And I'm not trying to make that an issue right now. You're asking me the question. I'm trying to answer the question for you. But yeah, that statement has been made
Sure.
on more than one occasion to us.
There is a young men's social club that we are dealing with, and the ladies' union. And I know the president of both of them, and they have not expressed to me that they have no desire to continue this arrangement. It served as a benefit for the community. I think in the heat of passion, people say all kinds of stuff.
And that may be the case,
Yeah.
but again, as county administrator, I can't obligate county funds, even if they're saying in the heat of passion. That's the reason why I'm before y'all today, to get comfort with you all to say,
I
yeah.
am very comfortable, Mr. Chairman, moving forward with spending $17,000 on this property to restore the concession stand, because I know that the community is going to continue the lease on this property and stuff.
And
And any other lease that we have that's outdated, we need to go ahead and rectify that. Now, I would prefer us to do that before we move forward to make sure. And I think because we do not have a current lease, we have 3 leases that at one time was initiated. Why don't we go ahead and make it one lease to move forward and have the Young Men's Social Club, the county government, come into an agreement with a lease, nullify the rest of it, and then move forward.
I'm
So
good
that we
with
can
that.
have that.
I'm great with that.
Because I don't think, I
That's
don't think
reason-
that community isn't wanting to take on the recreation maintenance of his property, but at the same time, the facility does serve a purpose for recreation at
I
this
agree.
time for the county. So that's my take on that, Mr. Chairman.
Let me see if I can nail this down. Does this fall in the category that you would normally be able to approve the funding at your level, but you want it to be subject to the resolution of the lease issues? And if those two things happen, it seems to me you could go ahead and make.
No, what-
Am I missing something?
What I'm asking for you all to understand is that we're gonna be spending public money on property that we have a lease for. The terms of that lease is that whenever we do improvements on the property, that the improvements stay with the property.
Right.
So, on one hand, we can do what we're doing because there's a public benefit. But you all as a council need to understand that that public benefit may be temporary unless you do what Councilmember Glover is stating and require, as part of the authorization of me to spend the $17,000, that you require a renewal and a long-term lease out there on all of the property so that it's clear going forward that the money that we're investing remains available for the community use and the community good for an extended period of time and not for a year or so, or be built on property that we don't have a lease on currently.
So I guess my question is, I understand it, I agree with
Right.
you. I guess the question is, you can do that on your own, to some extent.
I can't renew a lease. You
No,
all
we
have to
should
approve
be
that.
directing administration to bring forward a lease agreement prior to any expenditure of public funds at that site. And that would be my motion.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second
Mark
that.
seconds. Okay, discussion? York, is that,
No, I have no problem with that. Yeah.
okay.
This is exactly what I wanted you all to do. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Now, we have a motion and second.
Mark
If there is no further discussion,
Is there any objection to this? Any objection to this? Seeing no objection, it stands approved without objection. Well, this is a council business meeting. Now, I think that satisfies what you're talking about, right? You're okay with that?
Okay.
Having concluded all of our business, the meeting stands adjourned. Did I not do it on this one?
I think you did, but that's all right.
Which one?
no, we did number 14.
Yeah.
Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much, y'all.